Hey, Russ, that was a pretty good analysis, my friend. That was great.
Oh, kicking tires, lighting fires. I'll tell you, in my life, there's less than 10 games that I was absolutely certain we're going to cover the spread, and I'm 8-0, and there was no way Louisville was going to cover that. And if you're not an Alabama fan, that was a really boring game.
And he called the dogs off, as you said. I mean, he called the dogs off. I mean, he and that was probably early third quarter. He called the dogs off.
Hey, he put Jalen in and let him play. So there you go, the backup quarterback.
All right, Russ, what'd you think about Tua Tagovailoa?
Oh my goodness, that boy is fun to watch, man. Woo! He is special. Listen, it's going to be difficult for Alabama to score less than 50 points a game. He is really excited.
Rat poison, as Nick Saban would say.
He is. You can say all the poison you want. You can say possum poison, aardvark poison, all the poison you want. But that young man is it's interesting. We just lost, we lost two kids for the season this year. Jalen Jones, the cornerback at Ole Miss, and Kaylavon Chason, the rushing end for LSU. Two guys that are really fun to watch. So if you're watching a game and it's not your team, you watch guys like that because they're fun to watch, and now they're gone for the year. Tua is a guy who, if you're not an Alabama fan, he's fun to watch. That's how dynamic he is. It's like what he reminds me of? Different side of the ball, but he reminds me of Patrick Peterson. Do you remember when Patrick Peterson was running back punts for LSU? And
Sure.
Every time that cat was going to touch the ball on offense, or like Percy Harvin, it's like, you're like, what's he going to do now? And that's how you feel when you're watching Tua under center.
I'm with you, man. I've been trying to say it for 18 months, and finally.
You have.
Yeah, but it's been hard to drive this to a bus when you got a quarterback that as good as Jalen that's behind him.
That's like 50-2 or whatever. Yes, it is difficult. I remember you telling me this about 18 months ago, right after he was signed. So
I went to practice, Russ. I went to practice, and I was out there with some of my media colleagues, and I'm going, my mouth is like out there just wide open because I'm going, was there a pro guy that came here, was dressed up? Who is this out here?
Yeah. The difference between, in a nutshell right now between Alabama and certainly, and I'll say anybody from the West, and the West had such a great week, right? The SEC West had just a spectacular week. 7-0. Peter Burns was talking about this. 7-0. Outscored their opponents 329-107, beat two top 10 opponents, and maybe most important, while you're driving down the road right now, keep both hands on the wheel. SEC West quarterbacks threw 20 touchdowns and 0 interceptions over the weekend.
Ooh, wow, I did not know that. Wow.
So as amazing as the West was, the difference, Alabama takes their foot off the gas. And, they don't score any more points, but they still shut out or, slow teams down. LSU, and we've seen this for like the last 5 years, it's not an Orgeron thing, takes their foot off the gas in a blowout against Miami, and Miami comes storming back in, right? But we didn't see any of that from the Louisville Cardinals.
So as maybe the second biggest attention grabber in the SEC outside of Alabama, who was it in your opinion?
Oh, Auburn, please. Once again, the state of Alabama is rich in talent. That's it. First of all, there's not a lot we know, even after 1 week, right? This is like, remember when the Corn Dogs got all whipped up when they beat BYU last year, and we were trying to tell them, look, BYU's terrible. And they ended up dead last in the nation in offense, right? Well, who knows? Who knows how good Louisville's going to be mean, obviously we know Alabama's good, but who knows how good Miami's going to be? Who knows how good? But I will tell you this, Washington's offense is really good. By the end of the year, Washington's offense will be in the top of many national categories, right? And Auburn's defense held them to 16 points and looked really good doing it. So very impressed with Auburn's defense. Still have a lot of question marks about the offensive line, which was, in my opinion, one of the biggest concerns going in. Sloppy penalties. And if your offensive line's not playing well, which was the greatest surprise for LSU's performance, if your offensive line's not playing well, your rushing game's not going to be there. And so that's still my concern as Auburn gets a scrimmage this weekend against Alabama State.
And then we get that LSU Auburn. But let's not – we'll have plenty of time to talk about that next Wednesday when we talk. Let me ask you, and maybe we can – you may be the transition point here because we've looked back at a lot of games, and really Wednesday's that kind of in-the-middle game that you feel like that you've got to continue to talk about this past weekend, but it's also time to kind of look ahead a little bit. This Georgia-South Carolina game is not really getting the national attention I think it deserves. I think this is going to be a dynamic football game in William Bryce Stadium there in Columbia, South Carolina on Saturday afternoon.
This is the game of the weekend, in my opinion. I think we'll talk about it next, but I think A&M will play Clemson a little bit tighter than folks think. But the spread in the Georgia-South Carolina game is, I think, 9, right? 9 or 10.
It is. Yep, you're dead on it.
I don't feel nearly as confident about this one as the Alabama-Louisville game, but this is a really good South Carolina team. It is a team that got better and better as the year went along. They're not nearly as deep as Georgia, right? But they're playing at home in Williams-Brice, which you can ask Alabama fans. Williams-Brice is perhaps the most underrated stadium you could argue Williams-Brice is the most underrated stadium in all of college football in terms of that sort of loud, hyped up. That's a great stadium. Everybody knows about Brian Denny. Everyone knows about Jordan Hare. Everyone knows about Death Valley. Williams-Brice is a tough place, and it's going to be a tough place for Georgia to play.
So when you talk about Georgia, I guess maybe in your opinion, are they the team that we thought they were last year? Obviously
better.
Okay,
better, at least on offense. You can take. This game is all going to come down to Jake Bentley, the quarterback for South Carolina. And folks can say, oh, it's always about the quarterback. No, it's not. Because Georgia's offense, you could take Fromm away from Georgia, as good as he is. Georgia's offense right now with Fromm might be better this year than last year. And they lost, a first-round offensive lineman. They lost 2 running backs to the NFL. You take away Fromm, they got DeAndre Swift, Hardman's a stud, Robertson's a stud, Godwin's coming back. There's a ton of talent on this Georgia offense, and the offensive line's playing well. You take Jake Bentley away from South Carolina, and it's crickets, man. So we saw him do very well last weekend. It was, Coastal Carolina, but 22 of 29, very efficient, 250 yards, 4 touchdowns. This game, I think the defenses will balance off each other. I think they're both maybe slightly better one versus the other. I like Georgia's offense a lot more than South Carolina's, but it comes down to Bentley. If Bentley can play the way he did against Coastal Carolina, if he can be anywhere like 20 out of 30 for 200 plus, and a few touchdowns, South Carolina wins this game.
All right, so let's go to Texas A&M. When you look at Clemson traveling there to Kyle Field, they're going there giving up points, 12 points out in the Texas Houston, not Houston area, but College Station area.
Close enough.
Yeah, close
Kyle
enough.
Field.
Kyle Field.
Yeah, a good stadium, and they've spent a ton of money out there, and now they've got Jimbo, $75 million for 10 years, and you don't know anything from the Northwestern State game. That was about as vanilla an offense as you can see, pretty much running the ball straight forward. Travion Williams, over 200 yards rushing. He's not going to do that against Clemson. Clemson's defensive line is, again, football fans in the state of Alabama know Clemson's defensive line's elite. It's up there with the best of the best. They gave up over 100 yards rushing to Furman, in case you didn't see that over the weekend. Now, it was on pretty much one play, but it still doesn't change the fact that it goes in the record books as, a century plus rushing for Furman against the Clemson defensive line. They're really ticked off about that. Now they travel out to Kyle Field. They travel out to the Houston area. In order for A&M to have a chance, it's going to come down to Mond and Starkel getting the ball out of their hands quickly. That's on the coaching staff. So if you're watching this game in the first quarter, second quarter, you want to see two-step drop passing really quick, get the ball out of your hands. But, Clemson's not dumb. They know this too. If we know it, they know it. So you can expect to see, much like think about this. Alabama versus LSU in the national championship game 2011. Remember how the Tide secondary came up, crunched on the line? They were all lined up like three deep. You remember that?
I do. Yeah.
That's probably what you're going to see in this game Saturday night. This is a night game, Clemson versus A&M. Look for that. Look if you see that. And if you do, pay attention to the Mond if he's starting at quarterback, which he should. Two-step drops, get the ball out of your hands quickly. If he doesn't, this is going to be a nightmare.
So, Russ, I guess I would ask you this in our final 2 minutes here. What's the lock of the week this week? I mean, we're looking for investment advice. I mean, come on.
I don't have locks of the week, man. I don't.
Peck of the week. Subscribe. Give the 1-900 number, Russ. I mean, come on.
I think Florida will blow out Kentucky. I think this will be a lot closer to the game a few years ago when they won 45-7.
Okay. And that's in Gainesville minus the 14 for Florida. Okay.
Yeah, but that's not to me. I think it would be South Carolina. I'd take the points. If I had to bet straight up, I'd do Georgia. But this is a South Carolina team where, again, I think Bentley's got some wisdom, some experience. This team, unlike how it was at the end of Spurrier's time there, this is a team that's got leadership on the field. I like how South Carolina is playing. Again, they're not up to caliber of Georgia, but at home in Williams-Brice, if Bentley has a good day, they beat Georgia.
Russ Mitchell, CFB, on the Twitter account. Russ Mitchell, CFB, one of our favorites that we energize. He energizes us, and hopefully we energize him as well. Russ, I appreciate you, man. CollegeFootballNews.com, lead SEC columnist. Always. Thank you, sir, for being a part of the show.
By the way, I appreciate you all returning Louisville in the condition that you picked them up for the most part.
For the most part.
And please do not hurt Arkansas State this weekend. Please let them go home all in one piece.
Hey, we will certainly try. Nick Saban said he was pissed off, so I don't know what's practice is like. Glory almighty. What a bad problem. 51.
It'll be interesting to see if Saban can keep the score under 50.
Yeah. I mean, you said it would be hard to do it, and that's going to be a challenge.
It's going to be a real challenge to keep the score under 50. And Saban likes to do that. So it'll be fun to watch the first half anyway.
Russ Mitchell.
Rat poison.